And I think that that tension is a good tension because it forces you to really kind of think through, daily, weekly, monthly, am I using money in the long term wisely today?
Welcome to the Fiscal Foxhole, the podcast proving you don't need a degree in finance, just some grit, a game plan, and maybe a sense of humor. Your hosts are retired Army veteran Rob Moore and retired Marine veteran Omen Quelvog. Together, they'll help you dodge financial landmines, call in the air support on your savings, and laugh at the ridiculous money mistakes we've all made. If you can survive mandatory fund days, you can survive personal finance. Welcome to the Foxhole.
Welcome to the Fiscal Foxhole. I am your host, Omen Quelvog, and with me in the Foxhole is my co-host, as always, Rob, Blessings and Balance Sheets Moore.
That's better than I thought. Before we jumped in here, Omen had a big grin on his face because he had looked something up or created something. That's not as bad as I thought. I thought that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm not offended at all. Looking forward to jumping in this today with you. Hello, and good to see you as well. I'm excited to we're doing it. We're jumping into the options episode. This is where we're talking about trading options, day trading, how to read the chart graph and when to buy calls, buy puts, and sell options and dealing with these contracts. So you can make a lot of money really fast, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about, right?
All right. To the editor here, we need to put that big in the show for sure. Yeah.
It's the obligatory April Fool's joke. I had to do it.
You got me. You got
April
me.
Fools. Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy April Fools, brother. We are recording ahead of time, of course, but it's coming out April Fools. So I had to drop something in there. And I am a corny dad. So that is my obligatory April Fools joke for you. This is airing on April 1st. So we're recording ahead of time, but I had to. Couldn't resist.
Well, good on you. I had not thought ahead to April Fool's jokes. We should actually add more jokes in here as we like having fun on our show.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we need more jokes for you. We laugh at the stupid stuff we say, but our poor listeners are suffering through it's not funny. Why are they laughing? Why? Why do they
just get on with, the show?
Not funny. I know. Just get to the meat of it. Well, if you are eager to get to information, but hey, before you jump into the important stuff today, have you noticed that the market is up? And this is not a joke. I know we don't pay attention to daily market turns, but the Dow and S&P this morning was up 2.5%. And the only reason why I bring it up is not because I'm encouraging you to buy or sell related to that. It's just how many times have we preached that during market downturns, you get these large one-day gains, in the midst of these downturns. And I'm not going to say I know what the market's going to close today. It might be up a lot. It might be flat. I don't know. But the point is, over the last 2 weeks, the market was down 4.5%, almost 5%. I had folks reach out, friends, what are you doing? And one of my best friends reached out. He watched his 401k going down and he was kind of panicking. I'm like, no, man, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Had he moved to cash, guess what? That's 2.5% of the comeback today. He would have been out. So just kind of want to point that out. That's all.
Probably a good thing to point out here too is if you have enough cash reserves for the next 2 to 3 years, if you need it, right? If you need cash for the next 2 to 3 years and you have that set aside somewhere that is not exposed to the market, then you're not worried about the market. You have the bandwidth to be able to avoid looking at the news and worrying about what might come or might not come. Yeah. I just sent a email to a client earlier today, and she didn't ask about this at all. I just wanted to make sure that she was feeling okay with the fact that she's got 2 to 3 years cash sitting in her bank account because she will need that money eventually, but she has some space in between her and her investments, which gives her room for investments to recover from whatever the market's doing.
Yeah, good on you.
All right. Well, enough on that. Today, we've got some really cool topics. For, I don't know, Rob, almost since the beginning of our podcast, we've made some mentions across the board, the fact that one of the differences, you and I actually plan very, very similarly, but one of the differences in you and I as a planner is that I am a faith-based planner. Right. And so as this episode releases with Easter on the horizon, we thought it'd be pretty cool. Actually, you thought it would be really cool, which I appreciate. Yep. That we would do an episode on what is a faith-based planner? What does it actually look like in somebody else's plan when it is underpinned by faith?
Before you skip ahead, if you're not someone who's religious, I encourage you to hold on. Don't just jump ahead like, hey, it's not for me. I don't have a particularly strong religious ties or faith-based anything in my life. There's a lot of really great information in here that's around the values, your personal values, and how we weigh them in our daily lives and how we act and how we plan our financial future. So I think there's stuff in here for everybody. Someone like you who specializes in this, and coming from someone like me who will take anybody, you're like, I'll plan for anyone. I'm desperate, man. No, but it's something about you I admire a lot, and I wanted to learn more from you and kind of pull this out of you. So you're going to be leading this today, but I'll be here to kind of try to draw that out of you and offer insight where I can. Yeah,
and I appreciate you saying that. I think one of the coolest things about this is that even though I have a faith-based underpinning in everything I do, I actually don't think that there's much in the way of differences between the way you plan and the way I plan versus somebody of a different religion even. It's really going to come down to one thing, and we'll get to what that one thing is when we get to the end of this episode, but just hold on to your hats for just a little while. Before we get into that, let's get into this week in history. March 30th of 1867, the Alaska Purchase Agreement was signed. The U.S. agreed to purchase Alaska from Russia. Oh, Russia. If you could only go back.
I know.
If you could only go back in time.
Bad ROI on that sale for them.
Oh my
goodness. Yeah.
So bought for $7.2 million under Secretary of State William H. Seward. And you might be asking yourself, why did they actually end up selling Russia? No, selling Alaska. They sold Alaska, not Russia. Well, after the war in Crimea, Russia had a lot of debt, and Alaska was actually pretty hard to defend, no surprise, against Britain, who was already in Canada at the time. The ultimate military deployment game. Have you ever played Risk, Rob? Did you ever play that?
Are you kidding? Yeah, I'm a child of the 80s. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, we played that on deployment all the time. You leave games going for days. But anyway, I mean, this is quite literally what it was. So anyway, Russia decided it would actually be worth selling it for something instead of having it just taken from them at a great cost to them. So why does it actually matter that they sold Alaska to the U.S.? Well, initially, this was deemed as Seward's folly. Imagine, again, crazy. As we look back, yeah, crazy. But then this actually turned into a massive strategic and resource win for the U.S.
Yeah.
Huge military significance later, particularly during World War II and the Cold War, just giving that volume of space in between us and Russia. I mean, can you imagine having Russia that close to our borders?
Well, technically they are that close to our
borders. Yeah, if you go over the top, right?
Yeah, right. Now they are because we have Alaska. That's our border. Now, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's true. And I mean, looking back, the kind of the forethought of this, to kind of see what it would be, because you're talking 1867? My goodness, Russia's worried about being defensible. Well, I mean, it took another 70 years before they realized that just by the landscape alone, they were defensible. Come World War II and Germany trying to, do what they did to them. So, yeah, I don't know if this is forethought or just a gamble that paid off, but thank goodness, one of the most beautiful parts. And also, financially very lucrative parts of our country with resources, strategic win, et cetera. So, I mean, not to draw current political parallels today with, Greenland, and no matter how you think about the current administration, just the idea of trying to get land like that is some sort of strategic advantage, it makes sense to me. I understand if it benefits everyone and everyone's happy about it, then great. But yeah, looking back, it's really interesting. I didn't know the exact way it was, but 7.2, oh my gosh, that's rough. Even inflated, that's no good. Oof.
Yeah. All right, well, enough on This Week in History. Let's get into this week's headline. This week's headline comes from Vanguard. Jeffrey Clark titles his article, How America Uses Hardship Withdrawals. And Rob, I saw this article and I got to thinking back. A few weeks ago, we had a news story about savings rates and balances in 401ks. It said they were on the increase, right? Everybody was doing well. And I remember we had this conversation thinking, I don't know, that just seems like a head scratcher at the time with the amount of inflation out there. clearly your balances with how the market did in 2025, if you left things alone, your balances were going to increase.
Right.
But it just didn't sit right, that article. And I don't know, I almost want to go back to that article and just double check that it wasn't an April Fool's joke or something.
Yeah, good point. Well, I mean, we didn't dive too much into our skepticism of it. We did talk about the fact that the market was up. It was claiming 401k balances were up, but we were like, well, the market's up, so of course it's going to be up. So we did, I think that was the limit of our skepticism. But yeah, I was with you. Like, I was kind of surprised. I would have expected something more like this.
Well, in this article, Jeffrey writes, hardship withdrawals continue a slow upward climb, with about 6% of eligible participants taking at least one in 2025 compared with 5% in 2024. So real quick, let's talk about a difference between a loan and a hardship withdrawal. Rob?
Great. You mean from your qualified plan, like your employer plan? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to jump too much into the weeds on it, but the general idea is the fact that one, you have to pay back, the other one you do not, and you get penalized for. So the loan is the one you have to pay back. I mean, it's a loan. Of course, you have to pay it back. Yep. I like to call these the 50-50 loans. So you're limited to 50% of the balance of your 401k or TSP up to $50,000. So if you have $100,000 or more, then you can only borrow $50,000. You do have to pay it back with interest, but the good news is the interest goes back into your investment account. The only thing you're really losing out is that those gains had it remain invested. Obviously, that money's not going to be invested while you've borrowed it and taken it out and you're repaying it. But you do pay it back. The terms of the repayment do change depending on how you use the money. So be prepared to kind of dive into that. With the withdrawal, that's more of you're talking an emergency, right? And there are carve-outs and withdrawals that extend to people in certain hardship situations. I think other like domestic abuse, et cetera, things like that you can justify taking money out of your qualified employer account, but just be prepared to prove it. Your plan admin might ask for proof. The IRS might audit you and ask for proof. So just be ready to prove your situation, whatever the hardship that you feel is justified. Do your research, talk to a pro. But if you do not have a hardship that qualifies to take withdrawals before age 59 and a half, guess what? You're getting hit with taxes and penalties.
Yeah. I want to go back to your loan definition as well, because there are some other downsides in terms of if you take a loan and then you quit your employer where you had taken that loan, that loan is due back immediately.
Yep.
And if not, then it is considered an actual disbursement, which means that if you're under 59 and a half, that's a 10% penalty. And you're, of course, taxed on that as income. Assuming that was a pre-tax loan. So just be aware of that when you take loans, that have a plan to pay that back if you have to.
A lot of other weeds out there to consider too. Yep, that's one important one, but there's a bunch of other things you have to consider.
So in the article, he kind of broke down why people are borrowing or withdrawing from their qualified plans. Number one, and this is where our skepticism, I think, kind of stepped in during the last episode, was inflation and higher borrowing costs.
Right.
When you look at what the interest rate is on, let's say, a TSP loan, for instance, right now, I mean, it's actually a fairly competitive rate as compared to maybe a personal loan or some other kind of loan that you're taking out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you're paying yourself back. You're not paying the bank back, right? No one's looking to make money. You're just trying to pay yourself back.
But I'd still argue that this is dangerous ground, because you take that loan out at that interest rate because it looks good on paper. Again, what is the purpose for your retirement funds? Is it meant to loan you money right now, or is it meant to build over time to support you later on in life? I mean, that's kind of what it whittles down to for me. If you didn't need the money out into the future, then why are you saving it into a retirement account? Why aren't you putting it into a high yield savings account now and using it for that thing? That's really kind of what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that other than that's where planning comes in. We talked about folks that are really slamming money into their 401k or TSP, and they might have a hardship today. Then it's like, okay, now we have to turn to that asset that we don't want to touch, but now for some reason we have to. Where on the other side, if they had been saving, having a robust emergency fund, if they had been saving into a taxable brokerage on top of what they're doing with their TSP, they might have other avenues to turn to with liquid savings that, are still wealth and still usable, but more appropriately used in the short term.
Jeffrey lists two other reasons why people would either loan themselves or withdraw money from their 401k, 7 to 10 earning less than $100,000 are likely to use the 401k to avoid eviction or pay medical bills. Ooh, that one's tough.
Yep.
And then finally, higher income are more likely to withdraw to purchase a home or pay for higher education. And Rob, for me, this kind of goes back to that first point that we just made of what is the purpose of your retirement funds? If you're going to be saving for a home, why would you be saving for a home in your retirement fund? If you're going to be saving for higher education, why would you be saving for education in your retirement fund?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
And here kind of lies the fallacy of, well, maybe fallacy is too strong of a word, but a lot of folks they're really proud. They're like, I'm maxing out my 401k. I'm maxing out my TSP. I think that's awesome. First of all, let me just say that's awesome. Okay. Yeah. However, if we do look at it closer and you've got a kid that's 10 years old and you want to pay for college for them, okay, well, we have to plan for it. Like maybe not maxing out your TSP was necessary. Maybe $1,000 a year into the 529 after your kid was born might have served you better. You've talked about paying for a wedding or whatever, you name it, a down payment on a home that you're planning on retiring to. Like you said, saving is great. And sometimes I feel like we get caught up into, well, I'm saving into this versus I'm saving into that. And one is better than the other. It only depends on what your goals are. It's like, the TSP, like, oh, you're putting money in brokerage, you're putting into a TSP. Like, well, what are these intended for? As you eloquently said.
When we come out from this article, we have to ask ourselves, what is the overall impact? And you've already alluded to several things, but what is the overall impact when you use your retirement funds, the funds that you have set aside for living later in life, maybe even your ability to go work optional earlier if you want to? What happens when you use that to pay for things right now?
I think one of the worst things that happens is you kind of get used to doing it.
Yeah.
It's like you've kind of broken the seal on it. So it's like, okay, now this is an option. But to answer your point more directly, you're losing out on the returns in the market of that money would have been otherwise invested. And I'm not convinced, unless you've cured whatever the financial behaviors that got you into this position, then you're probably going to end up doing it again, right? You're just taking from your future self, likely. The best case scenario is you pay it back, great, and you get it all back in there. But I mean, I'm afraid you're probably going to end up doing this again unless you fix whatever happened. So there's two questions to that point. If you find yourself in this situation where you're like, I got to take a loan or withdrawal, you should step back very carefully and just say, okay, one, how much am I overstepping? How much did I overspend this year or over the last 5 years or whatever it was that got me to this point, right? What's the damage? And two, how long am I expecting this to last? So if it's a short-term thing, okay, that's probably better. But if you're not sure and you've just been overspending for like 5 years, it's like a leak in a boat. That could be more damaging than that one-time thing because something hits you all at once. You got to deal with it. Like, oh, I got to pay for this roof or whatever it is that I don't have an emergency fund for. If it's that long-term behavior and all of a sudden the credit card bills are piled up over year, and the eviction notice, you're a month late on the mortgage, to me, that's more dangerous. You got to address this.
Yeah, I like, and we'll end it here. I like how you have laid this out in such a way that if this is kind of snuck up on you over time, this is something certainly to deal with. But it is still an option on the list, right? It's just you have a list of options for if you get yourself into a pinch where you have something big that comes up that just completely overwhelms your emergency fund. Insurance doesn't cover it. Whatever the case is, on the list of options for you is a hardship withdrawal from your 401k or a loan from your 401k. We're just saying that while it's an option, it's probably not going to be one of the options, or probably shouldn't be one of the options that is high up on your list. It should be a little bit lower down on your list. But as you already said, if you have to get that far down your list of options, it's probably time to take a step back and ask yourself, how did I get here in the first place? And if it truly was one of those one-time overwhelming expenses, then okay, like do what you have to do. But if this was something that was building up over many, many years, then perhaps it's time to reevaluate. All right, now that we're done with the headline of the week, let's get into the rest of our episode. All right, this week's episode again airs around Easter. And for many of our listeners who have been around for a little while, they know that one of the few differences between you and I, Rob, is that I do focus in on faith-based planning. It's not exclusive. I will take anybody, I'll talk to anybody. That's not an exclusive nature of my practice. But for those that practice the Christian faith, those are people that I love talking to because we have some common ground in some areas of financial planning. So as we said in the beginning of the episode, I really, really appreciate you were the one who actually brought this up as a point of interest between the two of us and how this works.
As we both dive into values-based planning, this is something I really wanted to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts on how this gets placed into action, because I do have clients that this is very near and dear to them. They're religious, they're tithing, and they're giving. And I understand it's part of what we do is understanding the values of our clients. But I do believe that the faith-based and I know you and I are both Christians. That's where we're coming from on this. But like that kind of, I guess we call it a differentiator, that value for when a client brings that in, to me, it just resonates more in a more impactful way that we'll get into. But I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on it and what you have to, your experience and what you bring to the table with it.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, because most of the time when people hear about faith and finance, they actually think about Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
Because Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University started in his church. And if you listen to his show for any length of time, you'll know that is kind of fundamentally underpinned by faith, but done so in such a way that sometimes, I mean, he's not a financial advisor, right? So he's not giving away financial advice. Neither are we, but he's doing so at an audience level that is several million people deep. Like, we're talking to a couple of people. So we can kind of narrow into what this looks like. There's another brand of thought when it comes to faith and finance that I actually find even within the church that people will associate finances with evil.
Pet peeve of mine. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, because they take one verse, and you probably know what verse that is. It's stitched across your pillow, I'm sure. They take one verse out of the Bible and they'll tear it out of context to say that money is bad. Seeking money is a bad thing, right? And what I've personally learned over the years, and what I continue to teach course after course, and I do teach at our church twice a year, is it's never about money itself. Mm-hmm. It's always about your heart.
Yep.
It goes to the line of money is not the goal. Money is just a tool to get to the goal. So it's just, where is your heart aligned with money? And it's where your attention is. It's what are you paying attention to?
Can I steal the soapbox just for a second?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
I really despise those who equate money with evil. It's never made any sense to me. I've known people with money, without money, and evil had nothing to do with either of them. So I think there's people without money that can do evil things and people with money that can do evil things. And I think you've said this before, money just makes you more of who you already are, right? The other point I like to make is when people like to villainize maybe corporations that make a lot of money or people that have a lot of money. Like, it's just, I don't understand that thought at all. It just bothers me a lot, because I know I've brought this up before. If I sell you a widget and you're happy and you pay me a price for it, everyone's good. And then you come back the next day, you buy the widget again, and you come back the next day, and then you bring a friend, and then they bring a friend. At what point does it become evil? Like, at what point, if I'm making a profit, and I've set the price right, and I'm making a profit, which businesses do, at what point do I become evil? What's the number? So when they say, oh, this person has too much money, it's evil. I'm like, well, at what point did they become evil? What was the dollar amount where they became evil? It doesn't stand up to scrutiny. And I know I'm taking this off. I'm already derailing it. But that's just something that's dear to my heart. I think money is very useful. We'll get into that. And I think that's what you're bringing to the table is here's how does money and finances fit into a faith-based individual?
Yeah. One of the things I love about teaching is the fact that as a teacher, I seem to be the one that learns the most out of this. And one thing that I have learned as I've taught these kind of principles at a church setting is the fact that the scarcity mindset can span across the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich. You can be in a scarcity mindset across that entire spectrum of people If you're poor and you're in the scarcity mindset, you're always trying to get more things. And those are people who are often spending beyond their means. If you're on the rich side of things, that scarcity mindset can put you into this mindset of having too much security placed in your money. And the fact that your money isn't the thing that provides you security, particularly when you believe in the Christian faith. And so if you look across the Bible itself, Jesus never said that there were not going to be poor people ever, nor did they say rich was evil. Again, it all comes down to, where do you put your attention? Are you putting your attention into money, or are you putting your attention into something else that gives you purpose?
This episode is brought to you by the Military Financial Advisors Association.
MFAA is a global network of independent, fee-only fiduciary financial advisors who specialize in serving military families.
And we're not just highlighting it. Omen and I are members ourselves, so we know firsthand what they stand for.
That's right. Every member of MFAA is either active duty, a veteran, or a military spouse, so they truly understand the unique financial challenges that come with military life.
Plus, every advisor must hold or be actively pursuing the CFP designation, which is the gold standard in financial planning.
So let's put that together. When you choose an advisor with MFAA, you are getting a professional who won't sell you a product, who knows the military life, and will plan using your hard-earned military benefits.
Whether you're navigating a step out of the military after 4 years, a military retirement, or a transition into a work-optional lifestyle, MFAA advisors speak your language.
Visit militaryfinancialadvisors.org to find an advisor who fits your mission.
MFAA, real advice, real experience.
This advertisement is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. All investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Information and opinions provided within the Fiscal Foxhole do not necessarily reflect official positions or opinions of the Military Financial Advisors Association or its members. Consult a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions.
All right, so let's talk about some common assumptions that people make about faith-based planning. Is that, one, it's restrictive, it's rigid, it's anti-wealth. I think we've talked through that a little bit about, actually, it's not really. It's not restrictive, it's not rigid, it's not anti-wealth. If done properly, in that you use money as a tool, not the goal itself, it's actually none of those things. Conversely, secular finance, freedom to do whatever you want, optimization, maximize everything. You think that's true, Rob?
I think so. I live more in the second one. If I'm honest about how I'm kind of looking at my clients, but the first part, the faith part that you're talking about, that's what they bring, right? And then I kind of have to resonate. I have to be in tune with and understand that that's kind of what their core, what they're coming from. You tell me, so these are assumptions. Do they play out in real time as you do the faith-based planning?
I actually think that it is an assumption that many people will bring to the table and are yet surprised when we focus on something other than money, when we focus on what the goal or what the purpose is, and the money being used as a tool actually is the opposite of restrictive, rigid, and anti-wealth. Because you can use money in a way that's very permissive in that way when you align it with your purpose. It's maybe a little bit rigid, but when we say rigid, I'd actually say that's more disciplined. And then I would say it's anything but anti-wealth. There are plenty of rich people in the scriptures who were able to use their wealth in a way that they felt God was calling them to use it in a very good way. So, yeah, I don't think so.
So when you're dealing with these clients, as they come in, whether they be the faith-based or secular side, and you're having this conversation with them, what are the core questions that you kind of wrestle with them about, or that you have them explore?
So the very first question would be, why do we have money? What do we actually use money to do? I also ask them, how is your relationship with God? If this is what you want in your finances, how is your relationship with God? Because it really is difficult to align your purpose for what they feel that God has for them if they don't actually have that relationship. They're not practicing Christians, I should say, is probably the easiest way to put that. So we ask those couple of questions, and then we ask, well, what do you think you should do with money if We've identified that it serves this purpose that you feel God has given to you. And then when it comes to how much is enough, this is a really difficult question because, Rob, you and I have been through this so many times with, I mean, this is what we go through with almost everybody we speak to, is how much is enough? And there is a mathematical question or a mathematical answer to this. But you and I have probably both seen plenty of people in where the answer to this is never enough.
Yeah.
It's never enough. I mean, you could have millions saved up and ask, what is the purpose for that money? And finding an answer to that is really, really difficult. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. It's like, man, what is the purpose of that money? Yeah. How much is enough?
Focus on the things we do have in common. We're both values-based planners. We do get to know our clients, what the values are. You know, faith is obviously one of them for many, right, of our clients. So how similar is faith-based planning with values-based planning as traditionally put? And do you feel like they come up with different outcomes?
Frankly, I don't think that there's that much of a difference. With faith-based planning and values-based planning, we're essentially trying to accomplish the same goal. We're deriving why you have money in the first place. You have income because you have expenses, because you have goals, because you have a lifetime, and we don't know how long that lifetime is, but you have a lifetime's worth of expenses that you have to plan for. And traditionally, we know that there are things that come up, healthcare expenses. You have to continue paying your mortgage. You have continue to get groceries, continue to pay your insurance premiums. We know these things and we can plan for those things, but there's a limit to it based on what, and a focus. I say a limit, but also a focus on what you're doing with your resources. And for somebody who is of the secular nature, who doesn't really have a faith belief, we're still trying to find a purpose for why you would save money in the first place. Otherwise, why are you working? Like, what are you doing? And for the military, when you step out of the military, this is the same reason why we're trying to find you another purpose, because serving in the military is over. That chapter is over, but that doesn't mean your purpose is over. For faith-based, and I'm not going to say this is any easier because I've run into plenty of Christians who have also served in the military and who have also gone out and have also gotten out or retired or both, and they are struggling to find their purpose because they don't have a relationship or a strong relationship with God, which is where we derive our higher purpose from. But ultimately, we're trying to find the same thing. We're trying to derive our purpose. So I don't think it's that much different.
Well, let's talk about purpose as the genesis of where this all comes from. Because I agree with you. I think purpose is something we need every day till the day we die. That's something that like people struggle with when they retire, and they're like, okay, now the purpose that was handed to me and provided to me externally, a lot of people feel that, and they don't know it. And they think the answer to the frustration and anxiety of working is not working and doing nothing. Well, what they don't realize is that within what was demanded of you for your career is some degree of purpose that is there, that, hopefully you believe in what you did. And it does need to be replaced. You have to find it. That's the gift that I think a lot of, people in, the Christian faith, they just have that purpose. It's like, well, what I did for work is just what I did. My purpose never changes. Right.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that part, like where the genesis of the planning comes from, right? We've got the two different approaches. So a client comes to you, there's a secular approach and the faith-based approach. As they come to you with that purpose, as they kind of express themselves to you, can you talk about those differences?
Yeah. So I would say from a secular approach, the purpose that we're deriving actually comes from inner self, meaning design your ideal life. How would your ideal life work? And when we ask that of somebody who doesn't necessarily have a relationship with God or practicing in their religion, they're looking for, how does it improve my life or my family's life or my kid's life? How does it improve me? And it's very inner looking. Whereas on the faith-based approach, that benefit is also there, but ultimately it's, how do I improve the life of others that I'm serving around me? it could be with finances, but it also is, how do my finances free me up to then go serve in a different way? That is something that Dave Ramsey has spoken about, especially if you've ever attended Financial Peace University. He tells a story of a guy who used his wealth to take his entire family on a cruise once a year for however many years. However, another thing he did was bought 2 trailer loads of bikes for kids in the inner city who couldn't afford them. And he asked them, like, of those 2 events in your life, what would you rather do? And he said, hands down, my family would hand out bikes. Like, that we loved handing out bikes. And so it's just an example of where that purpose is actually sourced and where is it directed outside of the wealth that you get. Is it kind of internal towards you and your family, or is it external towards serving others?
Well, you making that point resonates a lot because you walk the walk. If you've listened to the episodes prior to this, you know that Omen teaches a class at church around finances. So this is just one of the many ways serving others and improving others in their lives with the skill that you've built, through the CFP education and the business that you own now. So I think that there's a lot of weight to that point, especially coming from you. But how do they overlap? So if you come from the one, maybe that as they look externally or externally and how they want to serve or the purpose or where they find it versus the other, what are the ways that those overlap? Maybe even the clients that you serve, because it sounds like you have both. So where's the overlap on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, ultimately, you and I have talked about this. We've talked about being intentional with your finances. Like, do not let your finances happen to you. If you don't have a plan for it, if you don't have a cash flow plan, if you're not budgeting and not tracking and understanding where your money is actually going, then eventually you're going to get lost. Eventually you're going to go back and you're going to be the next, I had to take a hardship withdrawal or a loan from my 401k because we weren't being intentional with our money. That is the case. Whoever you are, it doesn't matter who you are. That is a fundamental thing that we do. Same thing for long-term thinking, although I would say this is a little bit different. Although people of faith, I think, do think long-term, they also think short-term.
Longest term.
the longest term, right?
Yeah.
And hear me, Rob, because I am not perfect at this either, of how do you balance the tension of saving up towards the things that you know are, or you think you know are to come, right? If I think that I'm going to live until I'm 80 or 90 years old, 100 years old, whatever, I also think that I'm going to have some things to pay for in the future. And so I'm putting money away in savings. I've got my pension. I'm doing things to prepare me to live that long. However, my thought is, well, if I'm thinking according to Scripture, I plan as if God is coming back tomorrow, right? Like, my life could be very short. And so there's this tension that lives in, yes, I want to save for tomorrow, but how much do I save? Am I building up so much wealth that I'm actually not using it wisely? Am I becoming a scarcity-minded person? Am I becoming too secure in the money that I have? Am I using it wisely? And I think that tension is a good tension because it forces you to really kind of think through, daily, weekly, monthly, am I using money in the long term wisely today?
You're talking about the stress with saving versus, the purpose in the long term and short term, et cetera. Can I turn our attention now to what I think most people think about when they talk about money in the church and the plate comes around, right?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, the plate's coming around. Okay, so
yep, got to throw in a 20.
Yeah, that's the biggest part of a lot of this. I do want to just highlight that I have a few clients that look at this differently. I had one. They were great tithers, giving to their church, et cetera. They actually had a bunch of appreciated stock sitting around, and up until that point, they were taking the standard deduction. So guess what? Donor advised fund, perfect for them. Yeah, and because they didn't need it now it's satisfying. The church is getting what they need, and it kind of optimized their finances. I had another client that are steady tithers and givers, and the idea of trying to kind of come up with some strategy to maximize that or optimize that no interest in it whatsoever. It was a hard no because the discipline of the giving was what made them feel, it was like very, very important to them. Made it very clear they're like the best clients ever because they told me directly. I left nothing to the imagination. I knew exactly where they were coming from. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the giving side of things. Let's split it back up to the two sides, the secular side and the faith-based side.
So the first thing I would lead, and this is actually for both sides, is whenever I talk about giving, I don't lead with the tax conversation.
Right.
Because, and we've said this on our show before.
I'm guilty of this, yes. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we've said this on our show before, because if you give, you're still trading $1 for a quarter. You are not getting $1 for dollar deduction in your taxes if you give it away.
Thank you for saying that.
Right?
Yeah.
So I like to think of it this way. Have a giving heart in the first place. And if you so choose, then we can start talking about taxes in that way. But I love what you said about donor advised funds. And we haven't even really, I don't think we've ever covered QCDs, the qualified charitable distributions, but that's a thing as well. So there are certainly ways that you can take advantage of our tax system if you are a charitable person. And if you are not of faith, then those conversations, I think, may become a little bit easier only because of what you just said, Rob. There is this, what we refer to as the spiritual discipline of giving. It is hard to do. It's actually one of the last things that people do among spiritual disciplines of praying, reading your Bible, serving other people, fasting, and giving your money. Those are all spiritual disciplines that are really hard to do for some people, particularly if you're susceptible to looking around at what everybody else has. And I am guilty of that as well. Like, oh, the Joneses just went on this vacation. Like, why? They make as much as we do. I know their paycheck. We're in the military together. Why are they able to do? Oh, yes, because we give some of our money away. And then that could easily breed resentment. It is a difficult decision to do. And I can completely understand why your clients would say, nope, I want to write out that check every single month, because it's the spiritual discipline. It's the habit. It's feeling it when it leaves, and actually praying over it as it leaves your house.
Yeah. I loved hearing it. It was really great. I do want to challenge one thing. You maybe it was just a turn of phrase you used, and maybe you didn't mean it this way, but when you're talking about you don't want to, was it take advantage of taxes or something like that? I mean, I think you're beginning from the right spot, but eventually there is nothing virtuous about giving more money to the government than you're required to give them. I'm sorry. Unless, hey, if your church is the government, you feel like they are very good stewards of your assets, then by all means, you can write them a check. You can send money to the IRS. Go for it. Why aren't you spending more, I would say. But that's not the example we just talked about. We're talking about, how and when, again, what the genesis of, no pun intended, when you're giving the money and how you pray over it, how it leaves, and the discipline it builds, and the reasons why you give it. I think that you should always think okay, well, is this deductible on my taxes? All right. But that's not what you're leading with. It's not what we're leading with the giving, the philanthropic side of it, the tithing side of it, the good-hearted, where it's coming from.
Yeah. I mean, I have clients right now that I have suggested a donor advised fund, but again, they've not committed to it for the very same reason that you said first. They like writing the check. They like making the payment first. And for that to happen, that means it has to come from their checking account, not their donor advised fund.
Yep, fair enough.
Unfortunately. Maybe they'll let us write checks out of donor advised fund in the future.
Right. I've said, speaking of the philanthropic side of things, I've said it many times before that there's no better way to understand the value of a dollar than to work hard for it and give it away, right? and I really do believe that, because it just really resonates. It's helped to understand the maximum impact of the money you're earning and you're working hard for. So let's come at that as far as what money is from a biblical perspective. When you talk about money, what money is with your faith-based clients, what does that conversation look like?
I don't think that money is different for somebody of faith than it would be for what we would say for somebody of who is not of faith. That it is just a tool that It's not our identity. Like, you don't identify me. We call people millionaires and billionaires and whatever, but that is not our identity. The identity is not wrapped up in the amount of money that we have. For people, particularly of faith, they are first and foremost a child of God, no matter what their whatever their bank statement says. That doesn't matter to anybody. We don't put our security there. We don't rest our identity in how much money we have. I don't think it's anything different for somebody who is not faith-based.
I would agree with you 100%, because as someone who is hyper-focused on money, and I admit, I do kind of not pinch the pennies, but I pay attention to them in my own personal life, of my personal finances, more than I would recommend any of my clients do, because I find, I don't know, comfort and enjoyment in it. And it's not that I'm just piling stacks of money and finding enjoyment or comfort in that. It's just more being like aware and just understanding like what my situation is and planning. I just like all of that. But money it's just an idea. I mean, it really is just an idea. There's really nothing behind it other than our just shared notion of its value. So when someone else has money, one of the most freeing terms I've started using in the last 20 years is good for you. And not in a sarcastic way, in a really, really earnest, like people I don't even know. Like, oh, they started a business and they grew to, $500,000 in revenue in their 3 years. Just like, oh, good for them. That's great. Like, I say that not as a gift to them, but as a gift to me. Just great. Yeah. That's great. Fantastic. Good for them. Like, of anybody and everybody, it just relieves the covetous nature, that jealous nature that just kind of starts to build inside. I squash it. Just be happy for others. I tell it to my kids, be happy for the good things happen to other people. You always have something to be happy about. Like, but you just have to practice it. So when it comes to the money side of things, that's the same thing. They're more resourceful when it comes to the tool of money. I mean, it doesn't make them a better person or, anything like that. It's just, they have more of it. You have less, or you might have more than the next guy, but it doesn't make you any better.
I love that. There's something about money and this false nature of control that people think they have over money. We've got these financial fundamentals that we talk about on this show. Have an emergency savings, have insurance policies, build up some retirement funds as a way for us to mitigate what could happen to us in life. But you and I have been around long enough, and we haven't actually been around all that long, this particular profession, but I think we've been around long enough to know that an event could take you sideways. You were just talking about one of your clients who was just diagnosed with a severe form of cancer, who only has a little while left to live, likely. We don't know. And so as much as we try to control the circumstances, it is actually quite literally out of our control. Look at the markets today. Look at the markets over the last couple of weeks, completely out of our control. So we do what we can, but I want to rest on this is actually out of Scripture, 1 Timothy 6:7. We bring nothing into this world, and we will take nothing out of it either. George Strait, if you've ever listened to some of his music, says in this, and I quote out of one of his songs, "You don't bring nothing with you here, and you can't take nothing back. I ain't never seen a hearse with a luggage rack."
Amen.
It's quite literally the same thing of acknowledging that we come into this world with nothing. We should plan to leave this world with nothing. Die with zero. We've talked about that book. The principle is exactly the same. Our concern is that we are going to outlive our money. Done as well as we possibly can, being as wise as we possibly can with our money, we will still have some money left over when we leave this earth that we can then give generously to somebody else. But the point isn't that we are stockpiling millions and millions and millions of dollars for no purpose whatsoever.
With no purpose whatsoever. I like how you added that on, because again, when I see someone with a multi-million-dollar portfolio in their 80s, it doesn't strike me as a problem until we don't have a goal for it, or we don't have a reason for it. We don't have, I want this much to my trust, the family trust for my children and my grandchildren, and I want this much to this charity, and the will is well-defined and everything is in place. Because what's not going to happen is they're not going to spend the money, probably, right? So I love the way you ended that with without a purpose, because it's not the dollar amount, it's the lack of of ideas for it or lack of thought of like what you're going to do or what is this for. I also wanted to say, sorry, you made this very poignant thing, but I do want to say this, like, show me somebody who thinks that money gives them control of their life, and I'll show you someone that's never been married.
Or had kids.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because but no, it's such an important thing is that illusion of control, regardless of money, that we're in control of anything. And I know this has very religious overtones than it should, because that's what we're talking about. So I really appreciate it. I would just wanted to hammer those two things home that you said so well.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I do want to take an opportunity before we wrap things up here to speak to at least one area where faith-based kind of diverges from the secular nature of things, and that's when it comes to investing.
Yeah.
So, Rob, we've talked about this a few times, not on this show, but this idea of biblically responsible investing. I actually have a kind of a blurb on this on my website about what biblically responsible investing is, but in short, if you are of the mindset that you do not want to invest in companies that are participants in what are referred to as sin stocks, so we're talking things like tobacco, alcohol, pornography, slavery, quite actually a few things that most people in general would say, yeah, those are kind of bad. That they don't want to invest in those kinds of companies. I have put a lot of thought and prayer into this in my own life about how this works. And I'm actually part of another group who has done a lot of consideration and thought over this. And the best thing that I can come up with is, what is it that I'm convicted of? What is it that you're convicted of? Because let me back up just real quick about what BRI, like what that actually can result in.
What's BRI?
The biblically responsible
investing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So when you decide that you're not going to invest in those companies, you've actually just excluded quite a few of the top companies in the S&P 500 when you do that. Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there's a company in the Mag 7, the Magnificent Seven, when you're we're talking Alphabet, Tesla, NVIDIA, all the top 7 companies. There's not one of them that would be excluded in some form or fashion. And so when you do that, number one, you're asking somebody to put together an active portfolio of investments that are screened specifically for these kinds of things not to be included as part of your investment package. So automatically your fees are going to go higher for most ETFs that cover this. Your fees are going to be higher. And because you're not invested in some of the major companies in the S&P 500, you can probably expect that your earnings are going to be a little bit lower. It's actually completely opposite of, well, not completely, I guess, but it is a majority opposite of what you and I preach, Rob, for low expense fees and broadly diversified. So yeah, when you have BRI, I can't in good conscience say, as a faith-based investor, you have a responsibility to invest like this. I can't say that to somebody. I have to say, how do you interpret this and how are you convicted to do this? Because on the flip side, there's two sides to this. On the flip side of investing in a BRI nature, you can invest the other way. You can invest low-cost funds, broadly diversified, and then use that money towards doing good things. So I can't sit here on one side or the other and tell either side you're wrong or you're right. That is a very, very personal decision.
I have a comeback here. I'm going to challenge you a little bit in a way that ends up supporting your argument. But before I do...
Thanks.
I know. I'm a terrible debater. I agree. Here's for all the reasons why. Now, with the BRI, have you found, I guess, solutions for faith-based individuals that want to invest in BRI? Have you found solutions that work well? And I
Yeah.
guess I know you
Yeah,
probably maybe
absolutely.
you can't say them because we can't endorse certain investments, but I mean, is there a resource that maybe people could go and look and find, I don't know, information on it?
I don't have a specific resource that I would feel comfortable putting out here on the air. I would just say you can search biblically responsible investing, and there are plenty of resources that come about. The things that you're going to want to look at again are how diversified are they? What kind of fees are you paying? Most of these are going to be actively managed because they have to screen them.
They have to.
Yeah, it's taken me quite a while to put together even a portfolio that I could recommend to my clients over this, mainly because I'm still watching for fees and returns. Those are the two things that I'm still looking for when I go through this. So that would be the thing that I would encourage any of our listeners to do is just, again, look for fees and returns, as well as making sure that what they are actually investing in is, in fact, BRI. Like, I can imagine that this could go sideways a little bit in that people might advertise themselves as BRI, but actually maybe not screen for everything they want to be screened for.
So now I want to soapbox a little bit. BRI, I think a lot of times gets lumped in with the ESG investing, right? So
I'd see that.
And by the way, what ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance investing. So these are, funds that might exclude certain parts of the world or certain types of industries, oil, or, the sin stocks, et cetera. So I think with BRI probably gets lumped into that a little bit. Now, when someone comes to me and they have an ESG desire, or they're like, I don't want to invest in this stock because I don't like the CEO or the owner of the company, or, this thing or the other, I don't like oil or whatever it might be. I do spend time challenging their concept of this because when it comes to achieving goals, I don't like to mix the way we get there, right? So like we have tools in place to get you to a goal, and let's get you to the goal. And let's do it the best way possible. And to those people that are like, well, I don't like this company because of the environmental impact. It's like, well, what better way to make an impact on the world, like you said, then take the dividends from those companies and invest it in a philanthropy, or give it to a philanthropy that is good for the environment, right? Is environmentally focused. I think there's really powerful ways to live your life. But when it comes to investing, to me, it's low cost, diversified, in achieve your goals and make it appropriate for your goal. And when it comes to your philanthropy and what you feel like in your life, make your giving or the way you live your life that way, right? But when it comes to BRI and this stuff, it's different to me. It resonates more to me because if someone came to me and they're like, I don't like oil, I doubt they would say, I really, really despise, how oil is used in the world. And that is more important to me than my own family and my spouse and the house and my career, right? I would be surprised to hear that. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of times these are desires that are important to people, but maybe not like this huge, like really deeply held belief that controls the way they live. So that's why I feel comfortable in challenging those notions and help them design maybe a better way to pursue what they're passionate about. When it comes to faith-based planning and Christian especially, people that are Christians at heart, they put God and Jesus above their spouse and their family,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
This is what they're on earth to do and serve. So to me, when someone just says that, I automatically, okay, we're coming from a different place here. So with BRI or ESG, ultimately the investor, the client has to sleep well at night. So yeah, if they can't sleep well at night because they don't want to own Amazon and for whatever, okay, then we have to kind of get that in, just help to educate them, whatever. But this just resonates more to me. I'm not going to challenge somebody that, has this thought. I want to hear more about it. I want to learn more about them, but it makes more sense to me than ESG.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I want to continue that thought for just a second. I appreciate you bringing that up. I love the conversation that it drives because we can then say, okay, if we're going to invest in a BRI nature and these were your stated goals, this is the effect that investing this way could have on those goals. So then the next extension of that conversation is maybe you're not able to achieve all your goals. So what are we going to prioritize and how are we going to prioritize it to still invest the way that you would like to invest? And then are you okay with us chopping off the last 2 or 3 goals that you had on your list? And this is the tension that I actually enjoy kind of sitting in for a little while. And even if my clients are sitting in it, it's uncomfortable. And I actually like it because it forces people to get real with their faith.
Yeah.
It's a forcing function. I love this.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. It's like, it makes a big difference when you're like, you might not have the RV you want, but is not liking this, I guess, ESG or whatever goal you have enough to justify giving up that RV? Then that's a discussion. When it comes to like, aligning your investments with your faith, suddenly like it becomes probably a much easier discussion, or it just helps resonate. Like, yeah, this is that important to me.
Is a tent okay?
Right, right. But also, too, ESG's gotten better. I don't know much about BRI, to be honest, but ESG has gotten better on their returns in the last handful of years. So that is getting better. Not that that's what this is about, but it might maybe become more efficient in the future. So just one carve out.
I think BRI has become more efficient as well. And I'm excited to see what it has in store in the future for us as well. Well, let's wrap up this segment with just some closing thoughts that actually, as we've gone through this entire segment, I personally don't think that we have run across many differences in the way that I would plan with somebody who is of faith and you would plan with somebody who is not of faith. As we go through, we've been looking at the source of the purpose, the motivation behind decisions, and the definition of how much is enough. But I'm going to go through that regardless of where your faith walk is.
Yeah. Well, can you talk about some of the differences real quick? I mean, I know we're closing it up, and I think this is worth going long, so I don't really care. Yeah, I do it values-based, and if their faith-based is, or if their faith is really valuable to them, then we're going to talk about it and make it a part of their plan. But what are some of the differences that you will do with a client in a meeting?
Well, if they'd like to pray, I will pray with them in their meeting. That is probably one of the biggest things that I would see as a difference. But again, when it comes to the finances, we're going to have talks about giving, we're going to have talks about investing, and we're going to have talks about purpose. And that is, I can't say that there's anything different there than what I would have with another client who is also would love to just give, who would like to invest in a way that doesn't conflict with their own internal workings, and who is still deriving a purpose that is what they have is beyond themselves, beyond the military, beyond maybe even their family. Like whatever that purpose is, we're gonna attempt to find it. I think I would like to close with this thought. Financial plans are not secular or faith-based plans. A financial plan is actually a reflection of what your beliefs are, whether or not you believe in God or you believe in something else or don't believe in anything. Like the financial plan actually is a framework and captures what your belief system is, regardless of what your belief is. Rob, I think we'll wrap up our segment there. This has been super fun. I appreciate you bringing this up as an idea for our show. And maybe one day we'll get into, I don't know, I'd like to say some different aspects.
Whatever it is.
I'm not exactly sure where. Yeah, I'm not sure if we could.
Well, one of these days we'll get into what are you doing over there? What do you do with your clients? Like,
what do you actually differ on?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate you being willing to talk about it. So, I think there's probably a lot of folks out there that this will resonate with, and I appreciate it.
All right, well, let's get into the game show trivia. This is our weekly challenge between the two of us for the prize of pride and a really cheap trophy still sitting over my right-hand shoulder. This year, of course, as you know, if you've been listening for any length of time, we're keeping the score secret. Of course, I'm sitting here looking at it in our vault right now, but you don't know unless you've been listening with our show and keeping tabs yourself. We'll have a prize for you here at the end of the year for anybody who comes the closest, and we'll see how that goes. But for this week, Rob, you get to ask me the question. And I was thinking to myself as we were going through this episode and preparing for trivia, you really have the wide world of trivia questions open to you right now when we have a show about religion.
Right.
I mean, if we're talking thousands of years of history that now I am subject to. So I can't wait for your trivia question.
What Bible chapter and verse states?
Give me a second.
Yeah, right.
ChatGPT.
Right. No, I have something very less reverent for you when it comes to today's trivia question. And we're going to bring it all the way back full circle from the beginning of the episode. And it's going to be about April Fool's Day. So in honor of today, April 1st, the day of this episode releasing, we're going to talk about April Fool's Day. So this was going to be hard for you. The last one, I think you gave me like a heads up. You actually helped me come to the right answer. You really did help me out. I am not returning the favor for you today. I apologize. Thanks. This one's just going to be hard. And you might know it. I don't know. But I think it's still worth asking. And you can do the same to me next episode. Just make it equally as difficult. Totally fine. So anyway, the question for you today on April Fool's Day Omen is, which of the following is the most commonly cited theory for the origin of April Fool's Day? Is it A, it began as a Roman festival honoring the god Mercury, known for trickery? B, it started in medieval England as a celebration marking the end of winter? C, it originated as a marketing event created by European newspapers? Or D, it arose after the adoption of the Gregorian calendar when people who continued celebrating New Year in late March or early April were mocked?
All right. So here's where I'm at with my decision making, not knowing the answer at all. Did you use ChatGPT to write the question?
Yep.
Okay. So I've noticed a trend with ChatGPT that C is usually the answer. I might have edited
that. I've noticed the same thing. It might still be C though. So
it might still be.
Yeah.
But then I go back and I think, oh man, okay. So Rob said a few trivia questions ago, always look for the long answer. And the long answer in this case is D. So maybe you actually did give something to me. I'm going to go with D. We'll see.
Well, good for you. Yeah, you are correct. Well done. Yeah, it arose after the adoption of the Gregorian calendar when people who continued celebrating New Year in late March or early April were mocked. And the explanation is one popular theory traces April Fools to the 16th century France, when the New Year was moved to January 1 under the new calendar. Those who continued celebrating on April 1st were labeled April Fools and became the target of jokes and pranks, and therefore the history and the birth of terrible dad jokes and pranks throughout the years was born. But I hoped you kind of remembered that. I remember saying that to you a couple episodes ago, and I wrestled with like, do I tell him again? I'm like, maybe if you get down to like the two, and I give it to you. But well done. You deduced the correct answer.
Rob, I appreciate the help there, and that is going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the Fiscal Foxhole. We hope, as always, that you've taken something away that you can use in your life, particularly when it comes to faith-based financial planning. We appreciate you hanging out with us in the financial trenches, and if you like our show, we would love you if you wrote a review for us, or better yet, would share this with a friend. So, Rob, what are our key takeaways?
Key takeaways from today. Number one, money is a tool for the future. But when today's needs keep forcing us to tap it early, it's a reminder that financial stability starts long before retirement. Key takeaway number two, whether it comes from faith or personal values, everyone is building their financial life around a belief system. The difference isn't the habits, it's the why behind them. And key takeaway number three, at the end of the day, the people who win with money aren't the ones chasing more. They're the ones who've already decided what enough looks like.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions you'd like answered on the show, please send us a note to fiscalfoxhole@gmail.com. If you heard something today that you'd like to discuss further, or you just want to dig deeper into your own financial game plan, both Rob and Omen are accepting new clients and always happy to chat. You'll find the links to their websites or to book appointments in the show notes. Rob Moore and Omen Quelvog are both registered investment advisor representatives. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. While they are both advisors, they are not your advisors. Therefore, nothing you hear on Fiscal Foxhole should be taken as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. For guidance tailored to your situation, please consult a qualified professional who understands your individual circumstances.
So I had a marathon or half marathon I was preparing for, and then I got sick. You heard my voice on a few podcasts ago where I got really sick, and it took me about 3 weeks or so to recover. And the half marathon was this past weekend, and I had no hopes of being a speed demon out there. I just wanted to go out there, use it as a training run. And I had a friend in my running group say, don't sell yourself too short. Fitness does not just melt away that fast.
Yeah.
So don't sell yourself short. So I said, I don't know. I don't think so. It's probably just not going to be a good day. It'll be fine. Whatever. Man, I PR'd that son of a gun.
Are you serious?
Dude, I broke a goal that I've been trying to break since I started running.
What was the goal?
Trying to get under a 130.
Oh my
1 hour 30.
Gosh. What's the pace on that?
I got a 1:28:21 was the time.
Okay.
So it was a 6:47 pace, I think.
Oh my God. That's crazy for 13 miles. How'd you feel? Did you just feel great the whole time?
Great.
Like Superman?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was certainly warmer. So if you're not familiar with the Virginia Beach run, what you do is you do it's basically a figure eight. You go out and come back, and that's a half marathon. And when you come back to that halfway point, you split into 2 lanes. If the lane on the left is the half marathon and you finish, the lane on the right is the full marathon, and you keep going and do another out and back the other direction. And so for this run, the temperature was warm, a lot warmer than what anything I had trained in for the last probably 4 months or so. It was warm. I could not have been more thankful to be taking that left-hand turn and just running a half marathon. I felt so bad for the marathon people, but ultimately, I don't know. I had it in my mind that this is only a half marathon, and because of that mentality, I felt like I could turn on the burners just a little bit more, and cranked it out.
Did you just feel like the whole time, like you could just keep going, and you were like, oh, I could take it up a notch? Like after a few miles, like I just feel good. Did you feel like you were increasing pace, or did you just go with however you felt?
I generally had about the same pace throughout. There was a moment at about 10 miles or so where we turned a corner, and the wind, because we're right there on the beach. So the wind it was a headwind for the last 3 miles. And I got into a group of about 4 runners, and we, if you're familiar with penguin formation, we all just got in as close as we could, and we all just ripped through that last 3 miles as hard as we could. But again, I felt bad because 2 of them continued on with the marathon while I just ripped off to the left, like, sorry about that, gotta go.
Thanks for the draft. See you later.
Yeah, thanks for the draft. But anyway.
Well, congratulations.
Otherwise felt really good. Yeah.
That's really cool. I reminded, it was, I run a lake out here. Well, I used to run a lake. I don't run much anymore at all. It's a 5-mile loop. It's called Burke Lake here in Northern Virginia. Beautiful. One day I went out there probably 15 years ago. It was a long time ago in my prime, and did a training run. I just run around one time. And usually, I don't run a crazy pace. I've never been a great runner, but, I just kind of just run the entire time. That was the goal. One day I went out, it was probably 50 degrees and sprinkling. And I don't know what I had to eat. I don't know what hit me. I could not wind myself. I don't know what it was. I just felt
I love those
amazing.
Days.
I've never felt so good running. And I just kept kind of turning it up a notch. I got to the mile mark. I felt great. No trouble whatsoever. I was like, let me burn a quarter mile out. Like, let me just kind of push this for a quarter mile. And I still felt good. And I just kept on. When I got to 4 miles, finally, I felt like I was starting to really challenge it was by far my fastest loop there ever. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was what I'd eaten or just the weather, or no clue. So it sounds like you did that nonsense for upwards of 13 miles. That's crazy, man. Good for you. That's awesome.
Never know. Yeah.